As a little boy, I began to have visions. I wasn't sure what a vision was. This first happened to me as we were doing a traditional ceremony in the church called Stations of the Cross. Some of you folks might remember what that was. These were 10 stations set up in a Catholic church where you would pray the rosary. When I received this dream, to kind of skip ahead just a moment, I was not a Christian. I wasn't saved. I hadn't read really much of the Bible whatsoever, except a few passages on Sunday in church. We had a few passages that we would read occasionally, and in high school I read the Gospel of John. So I wasn't in a place where I knew what was happening in this dream, and this disturbed me greatly. And so you'll see tonight, as this begins to unfold, that God is an amazing God as to why He would reveal something to someone that knew nothing at all. And so I'm going to kind of ask you, try to put yourself in that place tonight, realizing that don't sit in here tonight for long as you're hearing the dream, knowing what you know right now, but try to put yourself, so to speak, in a place where you didn't know any of this, and it was being revealed to you in such a way that it was the first time that you ever saw or heard such things uttered. As I said, I began to have visions as a little boy in the second grade. The first time was when the Stations of the Cross, which were pictures on the wall, actually came to life, and Jesus was carrying the cross in the week of Passion. I saw him as a little boy with the crown of thorns on his head, just shoved into his head. They were long thorns. They weren't like what I had always thought in my mind, maybe like rose thorns or something like that, but they were long thorns, and they were actually, some of them were protruding from the sides of his head. He was bleeding a great deal down his face. His face was beaten extensively, almost to the point that it was difficult to tell who this person was. Many things I've learned over the years from following the Lord that were actually clear scriptural directions about his life that I saw in visions before I had read the Bible. This is part of the reason that I'm so certain about things that God has shown me, because of how they've come to pass and played themselves out. As I saw this, I saw from the point of him carrying the cross where the lacerations on his back were more than just stripes. I always imagined in my mind they were just, stripe marks, but they were actually deep lacerations where even the tissue of his muscles were exposed. And so it was a very gruesome thing to see as a little boy. I saw him crucified. The cross I saw was not high off the ground, but actually only about 2 feet off the ground. And I saw dogs urinating on the cross. I saw people spitting on him. I saw people mocking him verbally. It was a very, very violent scene that I saw as a little boy. I don't know how to explain right now how that happens. I just believe that God chooses to do things because He's God and He's omniscient and He has His ways. I wish somehow I could tell you the formula for how your mind works in a vision, but I just don't know. This began to keep continuing in my life till about 7th grade, and I finally got to a point where the peer pressure and the troubles that I was getting in with my friends because of crying and being touched by the presence of the Lord, although I didn't know that that's what was happening, I was being kind of persecuted for it. My family thought I was a little off, and so I pretty much asked God, stop this. I don't want any more of this. This is not blessing me. This is not helping me. I'm losing my friends. I'm losing credibility with my family. They think I'm nutty. They think I'm losing my marbles. And so just stop this. And it stopped. And I must say, about a short time after that, I became quite rebellious. At the point, up until that point where I asked it to stop, I was a very sensitive young person, real obedient to my parents, just a good student, had won some citywide awards. But as soon as I asked this to stop, pretty much my life began to really take a clear direction in the wrong path. Several years later, I had gotten married, and in early 1980, around August, I went to sleep this night. Just about like any other night, this dream began to start. It started with a very, very, very loud noise. The best description that I can give to you would be to tell you it sounded like a car horn from the 70s. How many remember what car horns sounded like in the 70s? They were very loud horns in those days. Wow. Or now they're just kind of a little beep, 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 beep kind of horn. But in those days, if you really laid on the horn, they were loud. This kind of sounded like that, except for it was extremely loud, very ear-piercing, and it lasted for a long period of time, kind of like a stuck horn. Has anyone ever heard a stuck horn? It was very similar to that. Right at that moment of hearing this, I was given the ability. Again, I'll share with you some things that seem to be very chronological in how this dream worked out, and yet in some places I can't tell you specific time frames because it was almost as though I was interjected into different situations without the understanding of time moving along. Some things were just very panoramic. It was just a wide, big picture that I saw. But at this point of the dream, I was given the opportunity to see kind of from the heavens looking down on the earth. And what I saw was that I was able to see, the globe was kind of out here like this, and I was able to see very clearly many cemeteries and graveyards. Then I was brought very close to many of these graveyards, and what I saw was a very unusual thing to me, was that the ground was breaking open. Literally the dirt was breaking open kind of violently, and people were coming out of the graves. I'll tell you that as a Catholic, I prayed many, many times that I believed in the resurrection of the dead. But I don't really believe at that point, in the dream especially, that I was persuaded that that would actually happen. I know now that that's what I saw. I saw dead people resurrected from the graves. The condition that they came out was very unusual. And the other thing that was unusual is that one cemetery plot headstone would have a person come out of the dirt, and one next to it would not. It seemed to be kind of not just random, but kind of a categorized launching, so to speak, of these people out of the dirt. Again, it was very violent. It was almost as though the dirt was receiving a small explosion or something and breaking open. And I literally saw dirt flying. And I saw this all over the globe. It wasn't just in one area. It wasn't just in, say, the United States. It was all over. And when people would begin to come out, their appearance, two things about their appearance first astounded me. The first thing was that the clothes they were wearing seemed to be like a choir robe. They were kind of like a long dress, so to speak, a cloak almost hanging off them. But in the middle of the day, it was like those outfits that entertainers wear when they're under the lights, and the lights, key in on them, and the sequins kind of make the light just shoot off, and they glimmer. These people came out in the middle of the day glimmering. Their outfits and their person was brighter than the sun. I wish I could explain that to you, other than I could see the brightness of these people coming out. Men, although they had these robes on, appeared to be very, very masculine. I always used to think that, those robes I had to wear when I graduated from school kind of looked kind of feminine, But these things that these people were wearing were masculine, and yet when women were resurrected, they looked very feminine. Again, I'm going to give you the dream exactly as I saw it. Some things I wish sounded more exciting, and other things I wish were just a bit tamer, but I'm going to give it to you exactly as I saw it. These people that came out, it was difficult for me to explain this over the years. Older people would come out with the appearance that they were old, but they weren't old. You could tell that they had lived a full life, maybe 80 years, 75 years, something like that. But say, for instance, their hair that was lost was back again. They looked mature, but they didn't look aged. Okay? Young people, I saw a lot of young people resurrected, and although they looked very young, they weren't very young. There was a maturity about them. I wish, again, I could clearly define how this appeared during the dream. I did not ask for this. I've never asked to see the Lord. I've never asked to see angels. I've never asked to have visions. Usually every time I get something like this, I end up getting in some sort of trouble. And so I don't really like the trouble that kind of follows you when God starts to show you things. The other thing that I want to make clear to you is when this was happening, I really didn't understand that it was God at first. And so just to have you understand where I came from, there was no desire for me to experience this dream. All of a sudden, the people that came out, they just disappeared. I wish I could tell you where I saw them go. I don't know. I don't know if they were taken and hidden somewhere. I don't know if they were taken in the clouds, because I never saw them go up. I never saw them go away. They just vanished. Okay? One thing I can tell you is I did not see one person on planet Earth changed like we've read in the Bible, where it says, you know, the dead in Christ shall rise first, and those which are alive and remain shall be changed. I didn't see anybody at that point, when I saw these people come out of the grave, changed or get zapped out of planet Earth, meet the Lord in the clouds. I didn't see anything like that. Okay? Again, I need to tell you, I had never heard of a rapture. As a Catholic, second coming of Christ was not even a dogma of our church. We didn't practice the belief in a second literal coming of Jesus Christ. And so this all was very foreign to me. And as soon as these people disappeared, for a lack of words, wherever they went, mass hysteria began to hit the earth. People had the appearance of absolute despair, hysteria. There was pandemonium everywhere. There was mass chaos. Lawlessness and fear was working everywhere. I was able again to see in many quadrants of the earth, and there wasn't any one nation that was under this. All of the globe was experiencing this.